Let's talk about your roofing business journey.
The first month he sold like 250 grand by himself, and I'm like, okay, we got to figure out door knocking.
What's the difference between being delusional and dreaming big?
He fell off a roof and fell 18 foot.
Lowest point in your career as a business owner?
I just focus more on the team building side, the recruiting, sales and marketing. That's the stuff that I enjoy more. It's not roofing specific.
Biggest mistake you have ever made in business?
Man, I'm not going to answer that nonsense.
All right, guys, very special treat for you, the one and only Hunter Ballew. Hunter, last time you were in my building, you were in the Storm Group office. It was about 5 years ago, 2017, I believe.
Yeah, almost exactly 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Fast forward 5 years, we both catapulted in similar direction, but we almost live like in parallel universes. We're kind of like watching each other different, but we're not in the same place we used to be. Take me back 5 years ago. How did you dive in the roofing industry last time? I've seen you last time you were in this zip code. Yeah. Actually in this building, but in a different company. You didn't have a roofing business. What changed in 5 years? How did you start it in the roofing business?
Yeah, so I think it's just kind of like everybody, like nobody really grows up and says, I want to be a roofer. You just kind of find your way into the industry, and then once you're in it, it's kind of hard to get out. For me, I was at the fire department full time, wanted to start a business, and so I did, and I left the fire department, started that business, and it was a marketing agency. And I didn't really know anything about marketing, but I was committed to figuring it out, learning it, and making a way for me and my wife and doing it on our own and not being tied to the fire department anymore. So I did that, and real quick I landed a few clients. I landed a fitness client. I landed a cafe that served coffee and stuff, and I landed a roofer. And so when I was doing the work, I was charging like $2,500 per month per client to do their marketing services, and it was really evident that it was a lot easier for that roofer to pay me the $2,500 because I just had to get him a few roofs, versus the coffee guy, I had to get him like 2,000 cups of coffee to cover my charge. So started focusing just on roofing. You may remember it was called RoofGen. We pivoted from Pace Media to RoofGen. And then shortly after that, in 2017, we launched Cornerstone Construction. I didn't know anything about roofing, and I jokingly but kind of seriously tell people I still don't know anything about roofing.
So you started two businesses without knowing anything about them.
Yeah, and just hiring the right people, getting around the right people. People that were willing to pour into me, mentor me. Some of those were people like you, and I just flew up here and hung out. Some of those were people that I paid to be part of their masterminds, but just kind of dove into the industry and focused on putting the right pieces around me. Because again, I didn't know anything about roofing. It was just like, hey, I know I can market and get the leads, but I can't close them. I didn't even know there was insurance. Like, I had no clue. I just thought you sold roofs. And then I hired my first guy. He's like, oh yeah, dude, we can, sell it for basically the deductible. Like, insurance will cover it. And I'm like, dude, this is freaking a gold mine. Let's go.
Easy. What's easier, running a marketing company or a roofing company?
For me, I enjoyed the roofing company more. Not because of the liability and everything that comes with it, but just the team. Everyone being in-house. When I was running the marketing agency, most of my team, all of my team, was outsourced, remote, some of them overseas. And I still have some of those team members today that help with roofing.com, RoofCon, and all that. But I enjoyed being in-house with everyone, with the sales guys, pushing every single day. And so real quick after we started Cornerstone and it started going up, I basically quit doing the marketing. I still did some consulting, and I've continued doing some consulting, but really focused more on Cornerstone.
Do you think of yourself as successful, and how do you define success for yourself now?
Yeah. That's a good question. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that tomorrow at this event. I had a big pivot last year, started hanging out with John Maxwell a little bit. He came to the event, and I was super blessed to get to do a trip with him to Dominican Republic, where he worked with the government officials down there, the president, the Senate, Congress, Supreme Court, bunch of high-level people. And I just got to see him speak and pour into others over and over and over. And one thing he kept saying was the difference in success and significance, and how success, we're focused on us and what we can gain. Significance, we're focused on others. And what I found is really what we're chasing in life is significance. We think it's success. We think we want to make the money and we want to have the big team and have the cool car and the fancy house and all that. And we do, and it's great. And as you level up in business and entrepreneurship, it's nice to have those things, no doubt. I moved out of a house that I stayed in for 8 years. It was a little cabin, little crappy house I bought for 55 grand and fixed up as we went. Just moved it out of that last year into a really nice house with a beautiful view and pool and garage and barn and all that. You know, and it is a lot more peaceful. There's a lot more peace of mind when I go home at night now than there was before. Because when I go home before, it's like, oh, dude, you know, I got to fix this outlet or I got to do something to the deck. And now I just go home and I can rest. So those things are nice, but significance, chasing significance and helping other people is where you're going to be fulfilled.
Yesterday I did a little video on dreaming big and visualizing where you're going. Are you big on visualizing? Do you see yourself somewhere? Do you see yourself where you're today 5 years ago? Did you visualize it?
Yeah, so I've got kind of an infamous quote I say all the time. My team always makes fun of me, but I think they halfway believe in it too. You could ask any of my team members and they tell you they've heard it hundreds of times. And it is that we're already there, the time just hasn't elapsed. Like I truly believe that in my mind. Like, you know, 4 years ago when we started RoofCon, it was like, hey, we're going to be at 5,000. We're going to be one of the biggest conferences in the industry. And now this year we're tracking towards that. With Cornerstone, you know, it's like, hey, we want to get this market to 5 million. Now we want to get it to 10 million, and we continue pushing. And so I think if you don't visualize, I think it was Jim Rohn, or I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, if you aim at nothing, you'll miss, you'll hit it every time. You know, I think you have to aim at something, or you are going to miss it.
What's the difference between being delusional and dreaming big? Because there's so many people, and you meet them all the time, especially on the sales end. You know, I'm a go-getter, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think all you got to do is take a look at the daily habits and the work they're actually putting in. You know, are they just talking about it? And that's kind of cliche, like, are you talking the talk, you're walking the walk? But it's true. You know,
true.
are you putting in the work every single day to move towards that goal? I think as you get a little more mature and a little more savvy in business, you understand that you can take your foot off the pedal. One thing I learned, man, last year, one of the most valuable things I've learned is the value of just maintaining your energy. Like, and I don't mean just like physical energy, but your mental energy, your capacity. How much capacity do you have? Because if you're going 100%, 110% every day of the week, at night you're answering texts, you're not taking any time to spend with your family or pour into others, dude, you're going to blow at some point because your capacity is just overfilled.
Talking about family, what's your work-life balance today and where was it 5 years past?
Yeah, it's really changed drastically in the last 6 to 8 months. I have a little boy. He just turned 3.5 a couple weeks ago, so coming up on 4 years old. It was pretty easy before him to just stay working 24 hours a day at the office grinding, and then his first 2-3 years was pretty easy to stay grinding too, just because he wasn't as conscious of dad not being there, you know. But now, dude, it's different. Like, it's super tough. Like, makes you emotional, you know. Like, before he was attached to mom because it's mom, and he breastfed, and you know, they just have that connection. Now I think in his conscious state, he's more of a daddy's boy. In his subconscious state, if he wakes up in the middle of the night or if he's sick or kind of crying, he wants mom. But when he's conscious, like, can I ride with dad? Can I go to work with dad? Like, every day. And it's become a battle of, like, every day he's crying when I leave the house just to go to work. And that kills me because, you know, he's my best friend. I love him to death. And so it's tough. And I've definitely done a better job this last 6 months, maybe even year now, of taking the time out, staying a little bit later in the mornings, not getting up early and going to work. I stay, kind of cuddle with him, hang out with him, maybe watch a show of Grizzy and the Lemmings. Come home at night, hang out with him, go swimming. We got the pool now, and he's a little fish. He's been swimming since he was 6 months old. So really try to do a good job of balancing that and starting to take him on some trips with me now that he's older. We're doing Montana, Yellowstone in a couple weeks. He's probably going to go to Indy with me next week to this event where I'll be speaking because we have some people up there. Bob Hull, his family is going to keep him while I speak. And so trying to integrate him more into the business. And do you homeschool your kids?
No.
No? They go to public?
No, private Christian school.
How are they with, like, attendance?
Really good. I mean, we have I mean, all 5 kids go to the same school. It's very, very conservative, real good school.
Yeah. Are they like pretty cool with the kids being out for trips and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing like me and my wife are trying to figure out as we get closer to Turner going to school is I think there's so much value in him going on trips with us. And I'm just not that guy that's going to be like, you got to be at school every single day of the year. That's just not who I am. Like, I could care less if he's there 70% of the time. Like, I think there's more value in him getting out and experiencing the world. So, you know, my wife was like, we should homeschool him. And I'm kind of against it, not really a fan of it. But we'll see where it lands.
What's your reason why?
Of not wanting to homeschool?
Just, no, in general, the reason why you do what you do.
Oh, good question. Yeah. So, kind of my life mission. We do this exercise at our Revolt retreats where I try to pull this out of everybody and get them to condense their life mission into just one sentence, one statement. Because what we do, man, is like as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have a mission statement for our business. We have these core values, most of us do, and we preach it, we talk about it, we eat it up. We tell people they have to, you know, live by it if they're going to be on the team. If not, we'll fire them. And that's the right thing to do, but we don't do that for ourselves. So one thing I challenge everyone to do is figure out what your life mission statement is. What do you stand for as a man, as a woman?
I don't think it's possible to have company values without having personal values. You have to write core, core values first. There is a website, and I'll put a link below if anybody interested. I did it with my personal trainer. The same thing. Like you start with your core values, and your core values is always going to become your company values. So I don't understand if people have that but don't have this, because that always comes from here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just a hypocrite who is demanding something from others and you don't do it yourself.
I completely agree. I think they're almost the same.
So what's yours?
Yeah, so for me, my life mission statement is summed up into this. I'm going to help develop millions of leaders who go on to change the lives of billions of people. Because I'm just such a believer in leadership and developing other people. Because, you know, you alone with your YouTube channel, maybe it gets to 100,000, 250,000, 500,000 people one day, and that's great. And you're able to help a lot of people through addition. You're helping one person at a time, 3 people at a time, how many ever followers you have that are watching your stuff. But if you start creating leaders and multiply them, then you can affect way more people. So for me, I want to develop leaders that go on to impact other people.
Last book you read cover to cover and enjoyed?
Oh my goodness. Literally on the way up here, I read one that's pretty short. I can't even remember the name of it. Oh, Zero Down.
Okay.
Roland Frazier. I just paid him for a consult. I'm flying out there from that Montana trip. He's in San Diego. Have you heard of Roland?
No.
You should check him out. He had a big event that he ended up exiting. Business stud, but check him out. He's got the best content on Instagram. He's a sleeper. He's only got like 22,000 followers, but he's built and sold a ton of businesses, done over $4 billion in transactions. And he has a book called Zero Down about how you buy businesses with no money down.
Very cool.
So I read that.
Love it. Favorite YouTube channel? I mean, we know it's Roofing Insights, but second most favorite YouTube channel?
Dude, I don't really.
Like someone, like YouTube personality or someone you would plug in, like for podcaster? Or?
Podcast, yeah. So more of a podcast guy than YouTube. Big fan of Craig Rochelle, Leadership Podcast. He's a pastor out of Oklahoma, but he focuses just on
spoke at
leadership.
your conference, right?
Yeah. Really good dude. Actually, a business stud too, kind of a sleeper. Nobody knows about it. He is one of the guys that created the Bible app that has, I think, 500 million, maybe 1 billion downloads on the App Store. It's one of the biggest apps in the world. And he's done all kind of other businesses as well, but like I think they have like 36 campuses and everything's paid for. You know, church is, at the end of the day, it's a business. Like you're managing people, you're managing money. Sure. You know, you got to be able to sell people to give their money for tithing. So he's done a really good job.
Yeah, we have private jets. We have billionaires too, like your Steels and
Dude,
stuff.
I'm still working on the jet soon.
5, 6 jets, so we don't
Maybe
have to fly with
excessive.
demons.
Yeah.
You've seen that guy?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be I don't want to be in a tube with the demons.
Yeah.
Now, Oral used to fly airlines, right? But even back there then, man, it got to the place where it was agitating his spirit, people coming up to him. He had become famous, and they wanting him to pray for him and all that. You You can't manage that today.
Right.
This dope-filled world,
Right.
and get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
They all have weird look. If you look at their eyes, there's like a glass. You can see Satan in them. Let's talk about your roofing business journey. When exactly, how did you start it? How fast did it take you to grow to scale?
Yeah.
Give me kind of timeline.
For sure. Yeah, so it started at May 24th of 2017. I hired my first guy right then. It was an older gentleman from Greenville, South Carolina that had been in roofing sales before. He came in and started helping me. I was generating leads, just feeding him the leads. He was closing them, and I think we were doing, at that point, just a profit split. We were just doing like a 50-50 profit split. A few months into it, started hiring some other guys. Didn't really take it seriously because I was still doing the consulting and the marketing and all that, and being a young, dumb entrepreneur, just trying to chase too many things, which I'm still guilty of. You know, from a young age, you hear that quote of like Warren Buffett saying, "Oh, you need 7 streams of income to be a millionaire." Come on, you don't need 7 streams of income to be a millionaire, maybe a billionaire, but you got to get the first thing cash flowing, profitable, taken care of, automated first, and then roll to the next. And so I just focused on too many things. So 2017, 2018, I went through 2018. I haven't really ever shared this, so this will be good for the show. May of 2018, that first guy that I brought on, he's an older gentleman, 64 years old. I was super close to him. He fell off a roof and fell 18 foot and took some pretty bad damage to his face, his ribs. It was so bad. This is how bad it was. He went to the hospital. You know, they're working on his chest, his ribs, checking on his breathing, his lungs, make sure they're not punctured, his face. And so after like a week, they're like, "Hey, let's get you up and walking around and see how you do." And he takes like 3 steps. He's like, my leg's killing me. His leg was broken. They didn't even know it. That's how bad it was because they were so focused on his upper body. So that messed me up pretty good, man, you know, because I was...
Did insurance cover it?
No.
Where he is today, fast forward?
Where is he today?
Did he recover?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that you can fully recover from that. It was kind of a bad situation. You know, he wasn't really supposed to be on the roofs because he was older, and he had promised his wife he wasn't going to get on roofs anymore. But he went out there to help another sales rep that we had, and was just being a good person and helping them, and, you know, fell off the roof. And so it was a bad situation. It took him a while to recover. So right at that time, that was literally like at my 1-year mark in business. That was May of 2018. Trying to figure out what I was going to do. He was my main guy that had kind of helped me that first year figure things out. And I got a call from a guy that I met at a conference in New Orleans. I think it was IMG, that one we went to in January of 18. Yep. I met a guy down there. He was out of Iowa. He had a roofing company, and asked me if I'd come up and just do some consulting. And so I ended up staying up there a month helping him. Just basically took like a sales management role, and he just agreed to pay me a pretty hefty percentage on all the sales. And so I agreed to do it. My wife was pregnant at the time. So she came up after like 2 or 3 weeks, stayed the last couple weeks, and then we went home after that. And so when I got home, this was August of 2018, my brother was getting married. I went to the Bahamas first. I left Iowa, went straight to the Bahamas for a week, did some fishing and stuff, just got my energy back. Because, dude, when I was in Iowa, I was just grinding. You know, I had no reason not to. I had no friends or family. I was just grinding. And so come back, go to my brother's wedding, and then I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with Cornerstone construction. Do I want to stay in residential roofing was the main question, or do I want to pivot to commercial? I always hated that the name was Cornerstone Construction. I've always hated that. As much as I love the brand and people know the brand, like it's pretty well known in the upstate and the markets we're in, I always hated that it was Cornerstone Construction and didn't have roofing in the name. So we came really close to rebranding it to React Roofing. I actually built out the website. If you were to go look up reactroofing.com, I think it's still live. You could check it out. And I was just going to focus on industrial commercial roofing. At that time, like that same week that I'm deciding on all this, an interview comes in for a young kid, and I go meet him at a local Mexican restaurant, Molina's, interview him, and I'm asking him about his sales, and he's telling me how much he does, and you never know if someone's legit or not. But he's telling me this stuff, and I'm like, hey, I guess I believe it. He's showing me the CRM, his sales. He said, man, I've been following you online. I've been following Cornerstone. I want to be a part of it. So he comes on board, and I was just so against door knocking, man. Like, I was so against door knocking. I was like, hey, we market. We'll get you leads. You don't have to door knock. He's like, well, that's great, but do you care if I door knock? I'm like, I guess I don't care if you door knock, but you don't have to. I'll give you leads. In the first month, he sold like 250 grand by himself, and I'm like, okay, we got to figure out door knocking. Like, this kid is on to something. So he brought on another buddy, and we brought in another guy, and then we started building out the framework for what we call now six-figure blueprints. That was kind of the end of 2018, and right then, November, December, I usually say January of 2019 is when I really made the commitment, like, hey, I'm going to take Cornerstone seriously. I'm going to try to grow it and do well with it, and maybe eventually exit, sell the company. So that's what we did. And January of 2019 is when we really buckled down. We started building out six-figure blueprint, just creating a system. And that is one of the hidden keys, man. Like our retreats, when people come in, it's crazy how many people don't have that. But when you can create something that give someone the ability off the street, they can come off the street, have no sales experience. And I have so many stories of this from Cornerstone and other companies I've helped build it out. But a perfect example is a guy named Jamie, one of our guys. He still works with Cornerstone, love him to death, was making, I don't know, 24, 26 grand, 28 grand maybe. I don't think he was making over 30 as a brick mason doing chimneys. He comes in and in his first full year makes 100 grand, just because he's plugged into a system and he can follow the system. It's not rocket science. You just do what it says, and if you do it, if you put in 40 hours a week, that's what I tell my guys all the time. It's like, if you put in 40 hours a week, I don't know how you don't make 100 grand, especially in markets like this, man. Like, you guys are selling roofs for 20 grand. We're selling them for 11.
Well, the problem is people don't want to work 40 hours. Look at Elon Musk. They don't want, like, my video guys don't want to work 40 hours. I mean, my current video guys, they do. But how many video guys we went through who, I have guys want to work 4-day a week, 3-day a week, Monday through Wednesday. It's crazy to me. Like, you can make $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
If you put 60 hours, you go six-figure if you put 40 hours, but then
it should be easy. You just got to put in the work. And it's something like, it really is, as a sales rep, a business in a box. Like, you come in, you make commission. The business is handling all the hard stuff, all the liability, getting the job done, all that. Like, you just got to sell work. And it's one of the best industries out there.
But the problem with the industry too, there's so many crooked business owners who will not give you that six-figure. On paper you'll make it, but at the end it's 50, 60, 70K. And then the moment they sniff that you're not going to be there for long, they cut you off of AccuLinks, send you away, and now
freeze you out.
You sold 1.5 million and you get paid 60K.
Which is a crazy mindset to me from a business owner standpoint. Yeah. Like, why not take care of that guy so that he stays there and does 2.5 the next year? I don't really understand it, but
because they were usually in a hole, and that's the industry for you. The most important lesson you have learned running a roofing business
is the value of a team. I said it pretty clearly earlier, like, I didn't know anything about roofing. I still don't know that much about roofing. In fact, I don't like talking about roofing. Like, when I go to these events and stuff and people start talking about, on the way over here, you're talking about lawyers and lawyer talk and insurance claims and paperwork. Dude, I just, like, zone out. I don't care that much about that stuff. I love our industry and I'm appreciative for it. I just focus more on the team building side, the recruiting, sales and marketing. That's the stuff that I enjoy more. It's not roofing specific. Roofing is just a vehicle. So being able to build a team around yourself, it's crazy to me how many of these guys I meet at our retreats and events that they're still in the weeds. They're still out there selling jobs. They're still doing paperwork and running the books. And, like, dude, build yourself a team so you can actually have that freedom that you said you wanted when you started your business. Because most of us say, oh, we want freedom, time freedom, financial freedom. Well, dude, be willing to give up a little bit of that money to hire a team. And in theory, if you do it right, they're going to make you more money anyways if you do it right.
Absolutely. Biggest mistake you have ever made in business?
Man, I think two things for me. It is my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. I move way too fast, and I'm way too trusting of people. Now, that is paid off for me in big ways, moving fast and trusting people, but it's also got me big time and made me lose a lot of money. Can I just add on
Sure.
to that last question?
Sure.
And so I would say I'm not sitting here being an advocate for people to not trust others, but put checks and balances in place to protect yourself, because it's easy for you to trust the single bookkeeper you have or someone inside of your business, and that bookkeeper is funneling some money out, or that manager that you have is swiping their card every night or every weekend at a casino or sushi restaurant or whatever. So just put checks and balances in place.
Love it. Lowest point in your career as a business owner, when you wanted to quit, when you fell down, when you were like, I'm done with this shit, it's not working.
Yeah.
Describe it.
I don't want to sit here and try to sound like, oh, I'm such a badass, but I don't think I've ever had a point where I wanted to just quit. But I can for sure tell you my lowest point was early 2022. We're sitting here in July of 2022 now, and Q1, January specifically, January of this year, and then like August or so, sometime in last fall of last year, were pretty low points for me. I don't know that I'd ever say I've been depressed, but if I have, it was during those times. Like I really started to understand.
What led to it?
Yeah. So I started to understand why people drink themselves to sleep. I'm sure this is going to come up at some point, but the lawsuit with SRC.
Sure.
And, I can honestly say, I truthfully can say this, I never at all feared the lawsuit. That is not what bothered me. It's not what kept me up at night. It's not what made me sweat. It was just that there was an attack on my reputation when I specifically try so hard to uphold my reputation and what I stand for.
Got it. How important is mindset in business?
Yeah, it's everything, right?
Well, everybody's talking this very trendy word now, and everybody's
It is
talking,
a trendy word.
It's making me like almost cringe. Like every guru, every influencer is like mindset. I'm like, how can you teach mindset? How can you? Everybody's talking about it, but it is important. And what's like how important it is?
I think mindset is kind of attitude. Really, it's almost just attitude. I've never really thought about that before until now, but
True.
If you've read The Difference Maker by John Maxwell, it talks about attitude. Me and my wife, every time we have like a cousin or a friend or someone in the family that graduates high school, we send them a card and we send them The Difference Maker. And just how, look, at any point, one of my favorite quotes, and I always butcher it, I can't remember it exactly, but Viktor E. Frankl in The Man's Search for Meaning, he says, the last of human rights is that we get to choose our own way. We get to choose our attitude. No matter the circumstance, you get to choose the attitude. For him, he was a Holocaust survivor, and he could have, when he walked out of that place, when the Americans came and they rescued them from the concentration camp, he could have looked at that Nazi guard and hated him and spit on him and wanted to kill him. And he said when he walked out of there, he had complete peace because he knew that that guy was only doing what he thought was right. So I think having a good attitude, and that's hard to do sometimes, man. It is. Like when people are down on you, they're bashing your reputation, they're saying silly comments about you or your family or whatever. It's hard to keep a good attitude, but if you can do that, I think it is directly connected to your mindset and being able to move forward in a positive direction.
You know what helps me? I get a lot of hate. Like if anybody missing some haters or don't have enough haters in your life, go start making YouTube videos. Even with the best, like even 5 years ago, I started doing Fittest Roofer, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I'm doing Fittest Roofer, and I have this roofers coming in hating me. It's like, oh, you're scamming people. I'm like, I'm giving my own money for a challenge that I created. Where's the scam? What was there for me? And I remember one guy came in and he said, well, you're doing it because you just need more money for write-off. I'm like, you dummy, you know how many things I can spend money on to write off as a business? I can take my team freaking to Cancun,
It's just
Mexico.
a reflection of them and their life, man. It's sad.
True. But here's where I'm going with it. Every time I hate, like no matter what you do, but every time you have the hate in your life and someone just hating on you, like hate 101, like almost like a road rage. And I have those people in comments constantly, and I'm always picturing myself. It's almost like an exercise. Try it. I know for a fact, if I get to sit next to that person on the airplane, or if we get, an open ocean. Think about this: if you're in open ocean, and your ship just crashed, and you're with that person on the boat, how are you gonna react? I know, like, I don't care if it's someone who hated me yesterday. Right. I know deep inside, when we're gonna put in a position when we both have to survive and spend time with each other, we're gonna be completely different human beings. Yeah. Ben Minchaka recently brought industry together, and I was thinking to myself, like, that would be one of those moments. Yeah. Like, if my hater would be at that funeral, right? When you see people in extreme conditions, just something opens inside of you. And I always do this exercise. Like, if me and him and no one is around, he would be a different person. Yeah. Right now he's hiding behind the keyboard, or we're watching people, us, like egos, and there's so many people, and I forgive you because that's not who you are. Right. Anyway, that's my exercise. I do it all the time because it doesn't matter how negative the person is. I know he doesn't know me, and I probably don't know him, but if we would be exposed to our inner selves, we would respect each other way more. Yeah. Just my exercise.
Yeah. Dude, we had people up until last year telling us that RoofCon was only for men. Like, we called a vendor to sell a vendor. Someone's like,
because
hey,
you position yourself in the market that way in the first year. That's why.
Well, not really. We had women at the first event.
Yeah, but I remember
it was sponsored by Bold Brotherhood, so people thought it was men only. We had women at the first event. At the very first event I ever did.
But I remember that, and it's a perception. Marketing is perception. Yeah. If you market yourself, I actually remember a few women calling.
I still get called a sexist all the time. At RE, some lady came up and flipped out on me because our retreats are men only, and I said, "Ma'am, at this time, about 2 weeks before, we had done a women's retreat," and I said, "Ma'am, we just did a women's retreat, but we need women to lead. It's hard for a man to lead a women's retreat, right?" Sure. And so I said, you should get involved. And she's like, "Oh, you can have women's retreat. You should do couples." I'm like, "You're unpleasable. Why don't you do I'm not."
That's why we did couples, like I did. But not only for that reason. There is a place for everything.
Yeah, and we just did couples in DR, Punta Cana. It was amazing, best retreat we've ever had. But some people are just unpleasable.
There is a comedian, a Christian guy, and he recently just like, it's impossible to do men's retreat because we never retreat. Like, we only go forward. And, who influenced you the most in business?
Man.
I remember 5 years ago, the only one name that you keep repeating was Charles Bronson. Bronson is the last name? You keep talking, the ClickFunnels guy.
Oh, yeah. Russell Brunson's good.
Russell,
good.
Sorry. Yeah. Russell Brunson.
Man, John Maxwell really isn't known for business. It's more leadership, but sure. It for sure poured into who I am as a leader. But there's Tony Robbins, Ed Mylett. There's a long list of guys that have helped me. Even back in the day, I'm not a huge follower now, but Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, some of those guys.
Got it. Double question. Number one is, how important and relevant is website? And what's more important in business than a website?
I think your website is extremely important.
Is it becoming less relevant though, or is it still there?
I think I personally am a big fan of funnels. I don't think that it has to be your standard WordPress website. I do think funnels are more effective for specific product offerings, specifically when you have one product and you just want them to buy. Because if you go to a website and there's a ton of different links, they're clicking all over the place, dog's barking, baby starts crying, they get distracted, and now you're not getting the sale. So I think having a funnel that's very direct and to the point for that one product is super important. What I'd say is more important than that is what I keep saying, and that's your team. Like, you got to have a good team around you to help you grow. If you don't, you're going to be miserable by yourself anyways.
What's number one source for good leads today? Where do you get most of your leads, most of your jobs from?
Yeah, I think the best because it means people are talking about you. Your lead cost is really low, and it means your sales reps are out there doing their job, and they're building a sustainable business for themselves as referrals. If you can build out a good referral program, like you look at Rainbow Vacuum, like they've been around for how long now? 60, 70 years. I mean, they're selling $3,000 vacuums, but they crush it. I mean, their sales reps crush it. And every time they go into a house and they do a presentation, they're getting 10 people from you so they can connect. And they'll tell you, hey, if you'll take me over there, you can make $3,000. If you get me, I think it's like 3 or 4 people to convert. Just that simple little referral program crushes it for them. In terms of something that's scalable and predictable, that's tough. I guess I'd say Google. Facebook's just
Not predictable.
yeah. During a storm, yeah. I mean, you can crush it, but you're gonna get a lot of low quality leads too.
After the storm, you can crush it on anything.
Yeah,
Demand is just so big.
telemarketing, whatever.
Name 1, 2 solid players in the solar space that you would recommend to any roofing company to collaborate. I'm struggling to find good. There is plenty of solar companies and solar players, but someone who they're legit, clean, reputable, solid partners.
Yeah, Jake Hess ran SolarCon this past year. Super cool guy. He came to RoofCon, spoke on one of the panels, and we already had in the works SolarCon. We were going to do a SolarCon in April of this year. Well, then about 2 weeks later, they announced it. Jake announces that he's going to do a SolarCon. He has a company called the Solar Academy where he trains other people. And if you ask around the industry enough, around the solar industry enough, people will tell you that they kind of credit him with creating the EPC model. So he's a young guy, and you wouldn't expect it, but he's really an OG in the solar space. And so he caught wind that I was going to be doing SolarCon after he announced it, and reached out to me immediately. It was like super cool. He's just like, hey man, do you want to be involved? Do you want equity in this? Like, I don't want to step on your toes. It was just super nice. He didn't have to do that, Sure. Best man wins. He was the first at the table. It's all good. And so I supported him and spoke at the event. We set up a booth there and everything, but he is a great guy. Mike O'Donnell, you've probably heard of him. He spoke at RoofCon, big solar guy. He crushes it. I don't know what he sells every year, but I think it's for sure he's one of the top sales reps in the nation. And then Brad Mortensen, which is my partner in RepCard. He's been doing solar for a long time. He just recently pivoted out of his solar business and just focusing on RepCard and building that out now. But he's got a ton of knowledge and is always willing to help people.
You don't recommend SIRC?
I give you opportunity.
I give you opportunity.
Here we go.
All right. What's your marketing budget should be? Like percentage-wise, or how much do you spend on marketing?
I think 5% is pretty fair, if I just had to say a number.
Okay.
And that could be a mixture of direct marketing for leads and branding.
Love it. So the last section, we'll go pretty fast here, just industry talk. So first, I'm going to say a name, and you're going to give me what you think about the name, first thoughts. If you don't want to comment, you don't comment, but I have about 6, 7 names. It's the first time I'm doing an interview, and I want to bring it to all my interviews. Here's why, because there's so many people, like people ask me all the time, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I think it's fair.
I'm going to commit right now to being extremely gracious and nice, no matter what the name is.
I know. Please do. Grant Cardone.
Helped me a lot when I was a young entrepreneur. I went to the first ever 10X GrowthCon. I'm not a huge fan of that model because it was just pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch. Every speaker pitched. So when we started RoofCon, literally, like if you look at our marketing, it is no pitch conference, no pitch conference. We have it in quotations everywhere. We didn't want it to be pitch after pitch after pitch. If they're interested in something and you give enough value from stage, have a booth, and then they're going to come over there and ask you about it. If I give some good golden nuggets, then people are interested in Revolt, then they're going to come over to the Revolt booth and sign up for Revolt.
Got it. Lee Haight.
Lee Haight. I think he has his own tribe. We all have our own tribe. Me, you, Anthony, Lee, we attract a certain type of people. I respect him for that. I think you have to respect the work ethic of anyone that makes it to a pretty high level, and I don't think there's any arguing that he's made it to a pretty high level. So I respect that. Some other things we might not see eye to eye on, and that's fine.
Ed Mullet.
Ed Mullet. I thought you said Ed Mullet.
Ed Mullet. Ed Mullet. Say it again.
Ed Mullet.
Okay, Mullet. Ed Mullet.
Yeah. Still sounded like mullet.
I say Mullet.
I love Ed, man. I really do. You know, a lot of those guys, big speakers, big names that have their own events, multi-hundred millionaires or billionaires, you don't really know how real they are, if they're kind of fake, whatever. Ed came to RoofCon, got to hang out with him a little bit. Super cool guy, extremely humble. Was giving me some just real business advice and family advice as we had time together, and was, you know, super cool. Gave me his phone number. Was like, hey man, if you ever need anything, hit me up. So I love Ed. I love his story. I think you should absolutely read his new book that just came out.
The one?
Power of One More.
Yep.
Yeah.
Best damn roofer.
Best damn roofer. I really don't know much about him at
Josh
all.
Bigger. From
Yeah.
what you've seen, what's your perception of the guy?
Again, no hate towards him. I just don't know. I really don't know that much about him, but I think maybe a little vulgar, like talking, and that's not really my job.
Sure.
But again, he does his thing, and
He's a comedian.
more power to him.
Anthony Delmedico.
Same thing. Has his tribe. I credit him with being one of the first to come into the industry.
First player.
And, you know, throw the conference outside of like IRE, throw a conference that was keynote heavy. Have the trade show side too. Has his university, does some events, does some good for the industry. So, you know, respect for that.
Sam Taggart.
Sam's a good buddy. Spoke at Door to Door Con this year. He's done a good job of being that first player in the door-to-door space. And maybe there was someone before, but he's the first one that everyone knew about, right? Like, he's loud, proud, in your face, and he's making a difference in the industry. And I think someone like him with high energy and a positive attitude is a good thing.
Follow-up question about Sam Taggart. Do pretty people have more success in sales?
Maybe that's why I'm so successful. I don't know. Maybe
does it help?
He's a freaking Salt Lake Mormon dude. They're all pretty out there. It's weird.
Does it help? Does it help to
eyes.
be handsome or beautiful in sales?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen some real ugly dudes crush it in sales, like some of the biggest rednecks I know crush it in sales.
What do you think their secret? Just charisma?
Those guys, I think people just feel bad for them.
Wow, did not see that coming. Is TJ McCormick the greatest roofer alive?
Self-proclaimed, baby. You got to believe it. You got to visualize it, right? I don't know what you mean by roofer. Do you mean actually putting?
That's how he called himself, the greatest roofer, right?
I'm gonna say yes, just because I like TJ. He's not the best damn roofer, but he is the greatest.
What's trending in the roofing industry now?
I think something that is taking a little time to catch up is people starting to realize, hey, we got to get on the solar wagon. If we don't, we're going to get left behind. You know, the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like, there's not going to be an option, I don't think, to not be in the solar space if you're a roofer, especially in states like California or New York or places where they're mandating it on new construction. So I think it's a good thing to see people kind of hop on that solar wave and focus more on it. And then also people being more willing to come to events. You know, you throw a big conference, I throw a big conference, and I think you just see so many comments. We're talking about haters. Like, dude, I can't tell you how many comments I got when we posted that Tim Tebow's coming this year that were, why is he coming? He's not a roofer. And I'm like, dude, there's so much more to life and to business than just knowing how to nail on a shingle or sell a roof. There's a lot more to it than that. And so I think it's good that more people have the willingness to come to these events, listen to the speakers, and that's all great. We have great speakers, but really the value comes in networking with other roofers. Like the ability to be able to call you up whenever I want. and ask you a question, and maybe you have the solution. Dude, that's a shortcut. Like people say there's no shortcuts. That is a shortcut.
It is a shortcut.
If you've been doing it for 10 years and I got an issue and I got your number and we're cool like that, you can give me a shortcut.
I would add to it, we earlier were talking about marketing budget. I would say, you don't have to go to school, you don't have to be educated, but you have to have education budget or conference budget within your company.
Yeah.
Don't think about taking a company to Cancun or whatever family style vacation. Take them to event when they become, friends with other industry leaders, other companies, because you cannot do it alone. And one of the things I started doing, I travel to companies all the time. So we come and we film, but I invite other people, and we're cool. We build community. So if I remember we went to one company in Philadelphia to film them. And I remember there's another guy 3 hours away, and I just invite him. I say, do you want to come with? So I called the company. He's like, are you sure the company will be okay? Yeah, they will be okay. You're 3 hours away. You're not a threat to them. And I remember the guy jumped in the car with us, drove, and we did two days of filming, and it was such a wake-up call to him. And we have, within the Roofing Insights community, so many people who've done it. After the conference, they would visit each other, become friends, and he said, I'm here thinking that I'm the only one dealing with this Karens and not paid bills and crews and subs. And he goes to this company who is like 4 times bigger than him, and they do the same set of troubles. And he's like, wow, I can build a company 4 times, and I'll still have the same problem. I'm not the only one dealing with it. It's a wake-up call. Yeah. And that's why you should have a budget I call it conference budget. So if you put 5% towards your marketing and 5% towards your education, go to conferences. Now, by the way,
I love that you said self-education, because dude, I have people all the time say, oh, you didn't go to college? I didn't go to college, but I promise you I've spent more money on education than anybody you know. Right? Like I've spent over 7 figures in self-education, courses, mastermind, coaches, consulting. I told you I just spent 25 grand to go see Roland Frazier for 4 hours, right? But he can give me one thing that saves me $500,000 on taxes or helps me sell for 2x higher than I would have sold a business. And so those things are invaluable.
If you spend 2 days at good conference, it equals 6 months in college. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
It'll take you 6 months to implement it.
Right.
Emotions alone, the drive, the spike will last 3-4 weeks. Yeah. So you come on in 3 weeks, you're not going to be emotional anymore. You're not going to have the euphoria, but implementation does not end. Anyway.
We have so many people that come to our Revolt retreats, and dude, we pack 2.5 days full of content.
Sure.
And we have at least a couple every single time that are like, man, I don't think I can join Revolt right now, because we have a paid side to the mastermind. Sure. Like, I got too much to implement from this retreat. I'm like, dude, screwed myself.
Exactly. Is mentorship overrated or underrated in the roofing space?
I don't think it can be overrated. I don't think it can be.
It seems like there's so many people.
And you said in the roofing space.
I mean, in any space.
Yeah. But there's mentorship, like actual mentorship, not like, hey, I joined a mastermind with Ed Milet, and I love Ed, but with Ed Milet and Andy Frisella, and there's 5,000 other people, and they don't know your name. That's not really mentorship. Mentorship is a relationship.
I agree.
So I think mentorship, yes, it is. It can't be overrated.
Insurance or retail model for the win?
For the win?
If you would start brand new in Atlanta, Georgia today.
I think you should start focused as much or more on retail than insurance. And insurance is great as a supplement, but you shouldn't build a business that's dependent on it. Because now I've been in a market, Cornerstone's in Greenville, South Carolina, hasn't got a storm in a couple of years. We're still doing pretty good. I mean, I think they did $6 million in first quarter, but we could probably do $30-40 million this year pretty easily if we had a storm. So now we're really kind of refocusing and trying to figure out the retail model. Look at some of the stuff Jen's talking about, some of these other people are talking about with retail, and have our sales guys not so insurance dependent.
We're in Minneapolis today. I spoke today. You're speaking tomorrow. Jen Stuller's event, one industry, one model. Is there such a thing as one model? Or it's all BS?
I don't think so. I think I don't know this for a fact, and I don't dislike it or anything. I think she may regret calling it that just because the perception of like, hey, everyone needs to be on this, and so many people are resistant to that I think maybe they were having a hard time getting people to buy into coming to these. And so I started seeing a lot of their posts saying like, hey, we're not saying you have to use this one model, it's just the name of our brand. So no, I don't necessarily think there's just one model that you should
How many
use.
models do you think there are for success?
Dude, I mean, there's insurance and door-to-door, there's retail, you could do retail door-to-door if you're good.
One-man stops. You know what fascinates me when one or two guys like killing and doing like 3, 4, 5 million. I have one business owner that he does about 4 million a year. He answers all his phone calls. He doesn't trust receptionists. He doesn't advertise crazy, but he just wants to be. It's one thing he doesn't want to delegate. And I respect it and get it, and he's very successful. I mean, he buys cars for cash, and it just shows you that there is more to, if I hate answering my phone call, like receptionists answer my phone calls, but he loves it.
Right.
So what? Am I wrong? He's right.
Question: how long has he been in business?
Oh, like 20 years.
Exactly. So that was going to be my point. As a young business owner, know that there's a lot of power in being in business for a long period of time. If you can just weather the storm, you might have some down years. Don't beat yourself up. It's okay. But of all the people I've consulted, the guys that have been doing it 15, 20, 30 years, dude, you're just starting to accumulate wealth at that point, because like year one, when you do 10 million and you net $1 million, you're wanting to use that money. I say net, but you're wanting to use that money to wrap trucks and buy more trucks and open another market and do this and do that. And
if that's what they want. Some people want to stay small.
And that's okay. They're usually more profitable if they are staying small, but you're just not going to have as much long-term upside.
Absolutely.
So it's really just if you want to delay that gratification and get that big.
What did you learn from the process of selling your roofing company? And we'll talk about it in the next question because you sold it, you're kind of getting back, but what did you learn in that process?
Yeah. It was kind of a wild ride, man. Like I told you that I had some interest when I was early on with Cornerstone of maybe I grow this thing and sell it one day, but nothing really that seriously. And then in 2020, we started getting a lot of people noticing us. We were growing, opened a couple of different markets, doing pretty well. Met some people that focused on growing and exiting companies. And so at the end of 2020, I joined 2 masterminds, one by Mac Lackey called Exit DNA. He's had like 6 different exits, not contracting businesses, just different businesses. And then I joined one called Multiple Club with Nick Long. And so I joined those and just wanted to learn about it and start building the company in case I wanted to sell. And then through one of those masterminds, they knew the company that bought Cornerstone, and they said, hey, they're looking for an up-and-coming brand that's big on the East Coast because they were just in California at the time. They wanted something on the East Coast. They wanted something with good leadership, good systems and processes, good training. We had some of that stuff, and they didn't at the time. And so it just worked out pretty quick. I don't know if you know the timeline with all that, but it went really quick that we went through the process.
Sounded like it.
Yeah.
So what was the, like, give me, why did you decide not to sell and get it back later then?
Yep. So
did you regret selling your business?
So I'll give the timeline and then I'll answer that. So I think I was first told about the company in late January of 2021 that they were interested in buying it. I was kind of telling the guy, the mutual friend that knew me and knew the CEO of that company, telling him, hey, I'm not really interested yet. I don't think I can get what I want. Because in full transparency, and I'm going to be super honest in this interview with you guys that are watching, because I know some of you guys are struggling with it too. I just talked about, hey, you do 10 million, you make $1 million, you want to spend all the money. That's where we were at. Like we had our first 8-figure year. I think we did probably 15 in sales. On the books, it was probably like 13. But dude, our net was really only like, I think 336 net. So you're talking about, what is that? Is that
30%?
3%?
Oh yeah.
3%, something like that. 3%, super low. But it was okay. I was when I say it on camera, maybe I'm a little like, I feel a little embarrassed about it.
Sure.
But I did it because I wanted to. It's not like I was out blowing the money on trips to Cabo. I opened a new market. That market now, Little Rock, they've already done 6 million. They just sent me the numbers yesterday, 6.7 million this year in Little Rock. And we opened that not even 2 years ago. I think it was August of 2020. We opened Charleston, South Carolina. We bought a ton of trucks. We wrapped a ton of trucks. We spent money investing back into the business. And so at the time when he's like, hey, man, they want to buy your company, I'm like, dude, if he looks at my earnings, which is what they value the company off of, if you guys know much about how they value roofing companies, it's usually like an average of 2.5 times your earnings. So I just wasn't interested because I was like, dude, I'm not taking $1 million for Cornerstone. I can make that next year if I actually run it a little cleaner and don't invest so much back in the business. And so he's like, man, I think it'd be really worth just going out there, meeting with him, and just learning from the process, even if you don't do anything. I was like, that's fair. You know, I should meet with the guy and at least go through the process and just see, and I could learn something. So I went out there. I showed him everything we had to offer at Cornerstone, what we were doing differently, and he pretty quickly like threw around some numbers, and I was like, damn, you know, if you're talking about that kind of money, then yeah, maybe
it was
we
dumb
could talk.
not to take.
Yeah, so dude, that was February 10th of 2021. I flew back the next morning. I landed in Charlotte. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, so I landed in Charlotte. I had to fly to Greenville. But when I landed in Charlotte, I had an offer in my inbox, in my Gmail account. As soon as I got it, first person I sent it to was Troy Clymer. I was pretty good buddies with him at the time. He owns Balance Claims. Sent it to him because he's a pretty savvy business guy. And I was like, dude, I'm just not believing these numbers. Like, is there some kind of catch? Yeah, like this is, you know, too good to be true type thing. And he's looking at it, he's like, man, it looks great. You know, just do your due diligence on the company, make sure they can make good on it. And to me, and
He runs them now, right?
Yeah, he's the COO now. So
how did that?
So part of my deal was that I would get paid off of acquisitions in the roofing space. So they really, if you ask my opinion, they bought me more than they bought Cornerstone. They wanted Cornerstone and they wanted the systems and process and things like that. But they wanted access to the roofing space. And one of the first questions he asked at the meeting was, what do we have to do to buy RoofCon 2? And before I could even say anything, the guy with us, Nick Long, said it's not for sale. We can talk about that later. So they knew they weren't going to get RoofCon off of me because I was already so invested with them stock-wise because I took a real stock-heavy deal.
In the RoofCon?
No, in Cornerstone. So the only way I would have sold RoofCon, and I probably wouldn't even done it, but is if it was all cash, and it would have been pretty significant. So we did the deal. That was literally 24 hours after I met the guy for the first time.
Oh, wow.
He sent me the offer.
How did they do their evaluation? Like, how could they come up with offers so fast?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Exactly. And so here's, I'm not going to get too far into it just because it's just drama.
I mean, you were a little bit drunk on the offer. I would be too. Like, it's a nice feeling. It's,
yeah.
You can get high from that.
I think the original offer was, and I'll just share the numbers because most of the numbers are public anyways, but the first offer was $3 million cash, 25 million shares for 60% of my business. I kept 40%, which means I kept 40% of the profit. Well, like the 15th, I came back to him and I said, hey, what would you give me if I give you 100% of it? Because originally I wanted to keep part of it. And then I was like, hey, what would you give me if I gave you 100%? So they made me the offer, and it was $3 million cash, 45 million in shares, an extra 20 million for the other 40%. Wow. And at the time, I think the shares were at like 119 a share.
Wow.
So I had about 55, 60 million, something.
That's crazy number for a roofing company with a 300K profit.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I didn't say. I meet him on the 10th. I get an offer on the 11th. I signed the LOI on the 16th. And the 17th, they asked for financials. They had never even seen my financials.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it contingent on financials?
No. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't. it's easy to look at it and say those people are morons, and you can have your opinion, whatever. But also understanding it wasn't just for Cornerstone. They just wanted that into the industry so they could start
Was
acquiring roofing
any of this
companies.
in writing? Because how do you buy influence? How do you buy
yeah.
you? Like, was it in writing?
Oh, for me? Well,
like
I was
for-
incentivized by the
Sure.
deals. I was getting 30% of the previous year's revenue in stock.
I see.
So if you did $10 million in revenue and I got you to come on with SRC, then I got $3 million in stock. When the day it closes, whatever the stock's at, if it's at $1, then I got 3 million shares. If it's at 50 cents, I got 6 million shares. If it's at $2, I got a 1.5 million shares. So I was incentivized to go out there and get these other companies. And if you look at my post and you look at all my emails and whatever for the first 3-4 months after the acquisition, we closed March 1st of 2021. That's all I was doing. I was flying to see different people. I don't want to say names. Different people in the roofing industry who were interested in selling their business.
Company.
So
I would sell at that valuation.
do I?
I would sell at that. Like,
Yeah.
we were as profitable doing
Right.
less.
And they after me, and dude, I have text.
They learned their lessons too.
I have texted them saying, look, we have to come up with a formula of how we're going to value these companies. It can't be this rogue because you can't pay that much for every company or it's just not going to work.
When and how did you get your company back?
Yeah.
Because
so
are you the 100% owner now or part
it's
owner?
still in the process. Paperwork's still in the process. I actually was hoping, I've been putting off interviews. I've probably got a dozen podcasts to do, not just on that,
Sure.
on the franchise stuff too. But I've just been putting it off until July because I thought it would be done by now, and it's not. So March 1st, I get acquired. Immediately, again, I have text, and I even posted this on Facebook. You could go look at my pictures where it was like right before I got acquired or right after I got acquired, right there within the week of being acquired. I text the CEO of that company and said, hey, look, I know a guy, it's a business stud. I know that our current COO at the company that bought me is looking at retiring. I've got a guy, Troy Clymer, that would be a great replacement. If you're interested, let me know. And so I put them in touch. Troy, Eric, the other owners, they said they wanted to sell. So SRC made them an offer, worked it out. They come on, this was like April 11th or something, about a month and a half later. They buy balance. I get paid on that deal. Well, I was supposed to get paid on that deal based off the contract. And I ran a leadership retreat in May right after that. I said, hey, look, we got, at this time, I think 11 different subsidiaries. Nobody really knows what the other person is doing, like what they're good at, where we can be helping to move the company along. Let's have a leadership retreat and try to come up with some core values, mission statement. None of that stuff was done, and work together on this. So again, all this stuff I'm saying like is super easy to verify. You can go look at our YouTube channel and look at the SRC retreat and me leading it. And so we went out to Utah, rented this big place, brought all the leadership in. We did this retreat. We set up the core values. We set up the mission statement. We got some of these things going. The next morning, the CEO of the company texts me at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and says, hey, can I come over to your cabin? Because we all had these little individual cabins. So I'm like, yeah, come on over. And he pulls out a notepad and he starts writing up an offer, and he offered me to take over as the CEO. We had press release done, everything ready to go, and the day before the press release was to go to live last June. This was like June 6th or something. If you could look back and see the press release that came out, because they announced Troy Clymer as COO and they were going to announce me as CEO. They came back to me and were like, hey, we need to renegotiate this deal. We need to give you less. And just the quick overview is they offered me 40% less of the original deal, which I'm all about buy-in and performance-based and earning it. I try to do that stuff with my team, so I'm all about it. The problem was I was sacrificing my Cornerstone deal for this new deal. So I was basically giving this up and getting this new deal. And this new deal was worth about 40% of this deal that I already had. And so I'm like, hey, man, I'm not going to take on more responsibility, all this liability, just a lot being in the public eye, because it's a publicly traded company, to get less money. It just doesn't, it's not a good business move. Like, it's not smart. And things just went downhill from there. I had it's called a make whole provision. If you're familiar with that, it's usually done in like stock sales. And so basically it's a guarantee that your shares are going to be worth a certain amount on an anniversary date of that sale. So for me, it was the 1-year anniversary date of the sale. They said, hey, we guarantee you that it'll be worth at least $1. Now, again, at the time, I think it was like $1.19 or something. So they had no reason to believe that it wouldn't be, but we saw what the market did over the last year, and it tanked. And so beginning of this year, January, it was a day before Door-to-Door Con. Worst speech I've ever given in my damn life at Door-to-Door Con because I was just stressed to the max, bro. Like, I almost didn't go. I was in Nashville with a buddy helping him get ready for an event. I got an email from some random lawyer in California that's like, hey, man, I want to represent you on this trademark lawsuit. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I start reading it, and I see that they're suing me. And so right before, this was literally right before my make-whole provision, they sued me. You know, they say what their reasons are. I know what I think the reasons are, so they didn't have to pay the make-whole provision. Because the way it worked out is 45 million shares is what I already had. They were only allowed to authorize 500. That's what their authorized shares were in their float for the stock. I already had 45 million, so I had about 10% of the stock. They owed me $2 million from balance that I never got. That was $47 million. And then there was another $80 million that they owed me from the make-whole provision. So I was going to have $127 million. It was going to push them past their authorized, which would have diluted the value. So it would have hurt the stock. And so we just continued talking. We got to a point where they called my lawyer and they said, hey, if Hunter would be interested in taking Cornerstone back, letting us have the shares back, and canceling the make-whole provision, we'd let him keep the cash. So it was only $3 million. A lot of money, but in comparison, only $3 million, right? So I'm like, hey, you know, I'm not interested in that. Kind of punted on that for a little bit of time. Well, then we decided that we were going to go ahead and move forward with the franchise program, which we haven't really talked about. We haven't even announced it publicly yet. We were going to do it July 1st, but we haven't. So we're doing a franchise program through roofing.com so that people not familiar with the industry can come in, buy the business in a box, and even have some current guys like our Revolt members that are switching from a privately owned business to roofing.com franchise. And so when I took the franchise, again, I don't know how much you guys are familiar with multiples, but roofing, a regular roofing company is like 2.5, 3x.
Yep.
A franchise is like 16 to 20x. So if I take Cornerstone back, they do $20 million. The royalty is 7%. That's $1.4 million a year going to it. It's worth 20x of that because it's in a franchise. Now it's worth $28 million. At the time when they made this offer, my stock was worth like 15 cents or something. So it was worth less than what it would be worth in the franchise model. So went back to them, negotiated, we worked it out. So I kept $3 million cash that I got originally and 10 million of the shares. Waived the make whole, waived the balance shares, gave back 35 million. So I kept basically, of the original deal, $3 million cash, 45 million shares. I kept $3 million cash and 10 million of the shares. So about, 27% of the original deal, and I got my company back to roll into the franchise. So I was okay with it. And you asked, I think at the beginning you asked something about like, did I regret it or mistakes? The only thing I regret is putting my team through it. Like, it was really rough for my team, and to the point where
Did you lose team members over it?
some, yeah, and that hurt, man. Like, to the point where at RoofCon last year, we had a ton of Cornerstone guys because they're still like family. Our roofing.com and Cornerstone office are still in the same building. So we had a bunch of the Cornerstone guys come down to help set up for RoofCon, set up the trade show and all that. And one of the guys came up to me that had been pretty impacted by Cornerstone. Another great story was just a regular hardworking guy, came in, made $100,000, and he just came up and was like, man, I miss you, man. I hadn't seen you forever. And I got pretty emotional, man, like pretty emotional, teared up, and was just like, I felt like I was just a traitor, like I just sold him, like that's something that when you talk about business and making money and exiting and all that stuff is sexy until you go about it and lose your team, the people that you care about, the people that you love, the people that had your back and helped you get there. So something super cool for me. I was real thankful to be able to do this, and that's why I negotiated super hard when I took Cornerstone back for the shares, is I was able to give all my team members a pretty significant amount of shares each.
Love it. Thank you for sharing, man. I know it's probably not the easiest for you, but it's good.
Sorry that was long.
It's good. It's needed. I'm pretty sure our audience appreciate it. You know what? I don't want to torture you anymore. I want to finish this interview. I just want one advice. You know what? No, let's.
3 more questions, 4 more
No.
questions.
Well, here's what we're gonna do. Here's how we're gonna end this interview. We say we hate getting haters, but I actually love haters. Haters fuel channels growth and stuff. I want you guys to comment below something about our speakers. So I have Roofing Process Conference. He has RoofCon. The most sarcastic comment wins. Hunter will give you 1 VIP ticket from him. I will give you 1 VIP ticket to a Roofing Process Conference. We're gonna read them, go through panels, go to RoofCon?
Yeah, it's
RoofCon.com or roofconference.com and look at a lineup of speakers and say something funny. If you hate Tim Tebow, just not nasty comment or hateful, but something sarcastic. You know, what makes you smile and what do you have to say about that? Because we read our comments and I love sarcasm. Good sarcasm, good poking, trash talk, and maybe you want to see someone in the lineup of both conferences. Give us a recommendation. We will read the comments. It will help us because conference is really big. It's for, it's our biggest event of the year. You put 2-3 days and you spend, $500,000 to $1 million and you spend money on tickets and it's stressful. It's 2 weeks of our time of our year, but it's probably 80% of the energy that goes to it. And we appreciate the feedback.
And then you mofos don't buy tickets until the week before, and we're stressing out like, God,
80% of sales comes on the last 2 weeks.
Are we going to break even on this thing or what?
No,
are they going to come?
We're going to lose money. We're always going to lose money. But our tickets are on sale. Go check it out and comment below something funny about our speakers. We will pick the winners and give me a couple of weeks. I'll announce them and you'll get a few VIP tickets. Thank you so much for sharing, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Love it.